The last bit is the rewiring. Now, as I mentioned, most people that deal with healing, unfortunately, either not aware or ignore that stage. Part of the reason they ignore that stage is because this is the longest part. If you think that releasing the pain is long, no. And to understand this process, I'm going to elaborate a little bit further. Now, as I said, this stage is really the part of installing new software. Now think about it this way, the old software you've been building for over many decades. So installing new software by design is not a short process, but it doesn't need to be decades. It's usually months to years. Now, how does it work? We have a circumstance, a situation where we interact with reality. That situation lands on internal landscape. We're not clean of emotions and feelings, etc., especially when we carry pain. So whatever is happening, interact with the internal landscape. As such, we create an internal reaction. Somebody says something, we feel our nervous system goes up, or our blood starts to boil, or we get angry, or we get offended, or whatever that is. There is a reaction. Before the expressed reaction, there's an internal reaction. Then there is the expressed reaction. The expressed reaction is not the same as the internal reaction because we're social beings. So we have some constraints, at least some of us. And we have some kind of a system that says, I can express that or I cannot express that. Think of how many things that you feel inside you do not express. So it's not the same. Then, after we express ourselves, there is a change in the external circumstances. All right? Now, we need to assess. Did the change work for us or it didn't? Did it make things better or not? Now, in many cases, in this process, we deal with triggers, with things that annoy us, that upset us, that offend us, that hurt us. Which means we can't really understand the full scope of what happened in the moment. So we need to create some distance and then debrief when we calm down. And once we debrief and we understand, okay, this process worked for me or it didn't. How I reacted was good or made things worse. Yada, yada, yada. Then we need to go again. Now, what happens when we install new software? It's only trial and error. So I can tell you from my experience, mostly error in the beginning, until you find a procedure that works for you, a reaction and a state and how to manage it. Now, the same circumstances for most of us don't repeat themselves every hour or every day. We have there's dynamics. Now, to change a certain habit, what are we changing? We're actually creating new neural pathways in our brain. That's a habit. A habit translates to some neural pathways that work, that fire. So to create new neural pathways, at the minimum, it's a 21-day process. The same goes for killing old ones. This is why when you're trying to quit smoking or drinking or whatever, there's a minimum stage. And usually it takes much longer because there's more than one neural pathway. So now we need to install new neural pathways, and we need to have similar situations. And we need to have trial and error. All that, and all of it needs to be, once we figure out what works, 21 days minimum. Do the math, you'll realize it's a compounding equation, which means it takes months or years. That process needs to become a standard operating procedure inside for you to really affect change in your life. And this is why a lot of people that deal with healing just ignore it. They don't talk about it. Or they're not aware that it's mandatory. But this is the stage that actually you create new reality in your life.